All right, we're recording.
Yep, I've set to record.
Awesome.
Good level, so just start when you're ready.
Thanks, Glenn. Hi, welcome to Canfield Company. I'm your host, Rob Canfield, and this is the March edition of Canfield Company. We are recording this the first part of March. We have been on hiatus for a while, but I'm glad we're back. We're going to talk about some stories that, that interest me, basically. Apparently the Oregon legislature is thinking of reducing the blood alcohol level when you drive from 0.08 to 0.05. A lot of people are against lowering the drinking limit to 0.05. They claim that they will have too many options, too many opportunities to get a ticket for DUI on the way home from their bar. They claim that it's more government interference. They claim a lot of this stuff. I have to tell you right now, I'm totally in favor of reducing the blood alcohol limit for a DUI from 0.08 to 0.05. And I'll tell you why. The statistics show that reducing the blood alcohol limit to 0.05 will actually save more lives. I am totally against anyone who drinks or drives. Let me tell you my experience. Yes, I was a party animal once upon a time back in the day. We had several friends, work friends, and just personal friends, and we'd go out and basically go out on the town, as they call it, to have a few. One thing we always made sure that we did is we took turns being the designated driver. That's right, we took turns being a designated driver. That way, the person driving the vehicle would not have had any alcohol, making for a safe journey. My other friends, co-workers, whoever I was out with, those folks could have a great time, could drink as much as they wanted to. Sometimes they drink a little more than I thought, but hey, in your 20s, single, this is what you do. Anyway, we always made sure that we had a designated driver. My personal experience also is shadowed by one of my best friends in high school, Matt Stoffler, who was killed by a drunk driver in Eugene. This is, I think, 1973 or 1974. He was on a bicycle ride with another one of our friends by a park just outside of town, and a drunk driver coming home from a high school reunion hit my friend Mark from behind, going at a high rate of speed, and Mark was basically killed instantly. He was thrown several hundred feet. This was a tragedy not only for Mark's family, but for the rest of us. I think it was the first time that any of us, my high school buddies and I, had ever experienced the death of anyone. And it could have been prevented. Totally could have been prevented if this gentleman had refrained from drinking and driving. If he'd only had a designated driver to take him home. I understand that he was coming from a high school graduation party when he drank too much, killed one of my best friends in high school. Now, there was a positive aspect to this, is that Matt's mom actually started the very first chapter of Mothers Against Drunk Driving in Oregon, in Eugene, because of what happened to her son. And she carried on that mission, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for several years. Again, folks, if you say it's more government intrusion by even having an alcohol limit, or by reducing the alcohol limit when you drive from 0.08 to 0.05. Even that small difference is going to save lives. And I would just urge you, everyone who's watching this show, it's fine to go out partying and going out drinking, but remember, make sure you pick a designated driver who does not drink, stay sober. He can still have fun with the rest of you, but that person, he or she, is the designated driver. So the rest of you can have a good time, but no one gets hurt on the way home. So that's it for this topic, first topic of the March Canfield and Company, and we'll be right back after this with another topic from Canfield and Company. Hi, welcome back to Canfield and Company. I'm Rob Canfield, your host. The next topic today is the cap and trade bill, which just passed the Oregon legislature. Bad decision. Bad decision. I know a lot of people out there think that, oh, it's a great idea. We're going to save the planet. We're doing our part to stop the contribution to global warming. But I want to point out an article from Oregon Catalyst. You can find it at OregonCatalyst.com. And they spoke the fact in there. They showed that the governor's staff showed that Oregon emitted about 65 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents in 2017. But by comparison, global emission in 2010 is about 37 billion metric tons. So what that means then is that Oregon accounts for less than 0.2% of global emissions. Less than 0.2% of global emissions. You know what that means? That the cap and trade bill passed in Oregon will have absolutely no effect on global warming. Zero, zip, none, nada. But at the same time, their cap and trade bill that passed would hit the pocketbooks like you and me. Our pocketbook would hit us in the wallet for about $600 million a year. And they're going to pass that cost on. It would also estimate, it's estimated that the price of gas will increase by 15 cents and utility prices by 11%. This is called the Clean Energy Jobs Bill. Now keep in mind, folks, you've got people who are on, well, I don't care what income level you are on, but especially people at the low end are not going to be able to afford paying more for their heating bill or paying more for their gasoline. A lot of people right now are at the limit of what they can pay for heating their homes in the cold winters out here in Multnomah County, and also for paying for gas. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea that the legislature passed. Now I'd like to point out another objection I have to the cap and trade bill just passed by the Oregon legislature. It seems that Oregon is modeling its carbon cap and tax plan. They modeled it on California's cap and tax scheme, which basically played a role in California's spike in gasoline, heating, and electricity. And what did this do in California? Well, it helped to push California into one of the states with one of the highest rates of poverty in the entire nation. So a lot of people think, oh, California's rich, look at all the movie stars there, look at all the wealthy people there, Silicon Valley, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But new data shows that California has the highest poverty rate in the nation, according to supplemental poverty measures by the U.S. Census Bureau. Yeah. So the Los Angeles Times actually wrote about the consequence of these cap and trade legislations. This is what the Los Angeles Times wrote, and I quote, "Extensive environmental regulations aimed at reducing carbon dioxide emissions make energy more expensive, also hurting the poor. By some estimates, California energy costs are as much as 50% higher than the national average." Jonathan A. Lesser of the 2015 Manhattan Institute study, which is called Less Carbon, Higher Prices, found that, and I'm quoting his article here, in 2012, nearly 1 million California households faced energy expenditures exceeding 10% of household income. And in certain California counties, the rate of energy poverty was as high as 15% of all households. Now, it looks like we're going to be next with higher poverty next to these ridiculously idiotic cap and tax proposals. Ridiculously. Now, right now, Oregon's poverty rate is in line with the U.S. average, except if cap and trade just comes to the state, because, as you can tell, it's obvious that Oregon passed the same measures, Oregon's poor will only get poorer. Oregon's poor, because of this ridiculous cap and trade nonsense, will only get poorer. So you can thank the Oregon legislature for passing this ridiculous idea and to help make poor people poorer in Oregon. So I posted my opposition to this bill on my Facebook page, and wouldn't you know it, Carla Axman, who is a left-wing activist in Oregon, basically said, in response to my argument that this bill will not reduce worldwide carbon emissions at all, Carla Axman said, and I quote, "What a silly argument. We do our part and role model for others and more join. The idea that we do nothing because we are too small to have an impact is absurd," end quote. And another person posted their response to my opposition to this carbon tax by saying, "And so long as small states and all countries believe the exact same way, no one will lead the way or be an example, and we all share pain." Great option. I think what these posters' comments actually say is, yes, we know that our contribution by raising taxes, raising fuel taxes, raising utility taxes, which will raise prices, doing all these carbon credits, we realize it won't have any effect whatsoever on global warming. But we have to show that we care more than everybody else, even though it's going to cause utility bills to rise, even though if it's going to cause gas bills to rise. They're saying it's ridiculous to think we shouldn't just do just a tiny little bit. It's ridiculous. Everybody has to share and care. And that is the problem, with all due respect to left-wing people. It's more for you to show how much you care and how much you are superior to those of us Neanderthals, to show how much you care and how much superior you are by making empty gestures like raising the price of gasoline, raising the price of utility bills, even though it will not stop global warming one little bit. Now, if you'll notice, if you folks out there have any friends on the left side of the aisle, you'll know they don't really care about results. They care about showing how much they care. Yeah, they do care about you, don't they? They care about you enough to raise your gas prices. They care about you enough to raise your utility bills, even though it won't do a bit of good. And that's my rant for today's show. We'll be right back after this with another topic on Canfield Company. Welcome back to Canfield and Company. I'm your host, Rob Canfield. This last story today on Canfield and Company, ending the show on a really sad and tragic note. A good friend of mine, a good friend of the city of Troutdale, a good friend of all of East Multnomah County passed away last month in February. John Wilson tragically passed away last month, and it was a real shock not only to, of course, his family, but to the rest of the community. John was like a brother to me and like a brother to my wife Tana. As a matter of fact, whenever we went out with John and his wife, John would greet my wife Tana with, "Hey sis, how's it going?" Indeed, John was like the brother I didn't have. Now, I first met John in 2004 during the Troutdale City Council races. And my wife and I got to know John and Paula through many meals shared together at many of Troutdale's eating establishments on First Friday and other days. And usually what would happen at these dinners on First Friday is John and I would get so involved with talking politics, and we pretty much wouldn't stop, that my wife and John's wife would just look at us in disgust and walk away to do whatever else was to be found on First Friday, and left John and I to discuss politics. Now, John, my wife Tana, and I also volunteered together for many years at Troutdale's signature events such as Troutdale Summerfest and the Troutdale Cruise-In. You're rolling.
Hello? Hello?
You're closer to him.
No.
She has to stand.
Thank
What
you.
does she have, cooties?
Jeez, I
Big
do?
sister.
Okay, that's right, I am. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, go.
Well, oh my, Mr. Hollywood, Mr. Moondoggy, right here, right now. This is a Troutdale 2016 cruise-in. So, Moondoggy, how's this been from the start today?
Well, it's one of our largest shows we've had. We're actually filling up the side streets now because we have such large participation this year.
John and I served on the budget committee together, and we also served at different times on the Troutdale City Council. And, you know, what we would do a lot of times after the city council meetings or after the budget committee meetings, we would head over to Skyland Pub. No, I didn't drink and drive. I live about a block and a half from Skyland Pub. Neither did John. And we met there and talked for many hours with other politicos and interested citizens to talk about the issues of the day. And John was right up there with the best of them. You know, over the years, we had hundreds of these beer and bull sessions at Skyland Pub, Ye Old Pub, several other places. We never drank and drive ever when we did these, by the way. During election season, John and I spent many weeks every single election season going door to door together. He'd take one side of the street, I'd take the other side of the street. Rain or shine, we would do this throughout Troutdale. We did it for ourselves, for our own campaigns. We did it for other people running for city council. We went door to door for the Troutdale Police Station bond. We did a lot of door-to-door knocking for a lot of people, and it was a lot of fun. But I have to tell you, the thing that John was most passionate about was organizing the annual Troutdale Cruise-In. Every year, you've probably been to the famous Troutdale Cruise-In. John put this on along with Troutdale General Store owner Terry Smoke every single year. And John got me to volunteer too, as well as Tana. What I did for the Troutdale Cruise-In was to interview the car owners, take videos of the different cars, take videos and pictures, basically interview the car owners and basically we interviewed the car owners. Tana interviewed the people. I was the camera guy. Tana was the talent. That's right, we interviewed the car owners and asked them to tell us the story of their car, how they found the car, etc., etc. And I loved it when Tana asked the car owners, why did you pick this car to restore? And invariably, their answer was, well, it was the car I had in high school. We also interviewed John several times during the event on who the sponsors were for the event, and then we also talked to the folks who won the categories. There were different winners in every category, where the winners of each category would get a plaque or ribbons, etc., etc., etc. Now, the great thing about John was you could tell whenever we went out with him and his wife Paula, he was head over heels in love with his wife Paula, and he bragged constantly about his kids and his grandkids. He was so proud of those folks. And a third member of the family, though, was his 1963 Corvette.
You broke my microphone.
Split window. John loved that car, and I know why he loved it, because he told me why he loved it. He and his dad, when John was raised, he grew up in the Southland in California in the 60s and 70s. His dad bought that Corvette, and John and his dad rebuilt that Corvette, and it took them a long time to do it, but John was so happy. He told me the happy times, good times of being with his dad and rebuilding that Corvette. Now, several years ago, the car was being parked in John's mom's garage. Several years ago, John trucked the car up to Troutdale, and this car became a celebrity of its own. Absolutely. People loved watching that car. People loved listening to the car. It was just amazing. John and I went to a cruise-in up in Kalama, Washington, once a couple of years ago, and driving up from Troutdale to Kalama and back on the freeway, it was just amazing. People slowed down. They waved at John, honked their horn, said, "Great car, great car." John had so much fun in that car. Terry Smoke and his wife Jody told me they visited John and his wife in the hospital shortly before John passed away. And his wife Paula had some very wise words for all of us. She said, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you have breakfast, you get in your car, and you go to work. And then in one instant, everything changes, everything. And Paula told Terry and Jody, there's only one thing that matters in this life, and that's your family and your friends. I will repeat what Paula said to end the show. The only things that matter in this life are our family and our friends. John, farewell, rest in peace. You're the brother I never had, and Godspeed, and God bless you. We miss you. We'll miss you always. And that's it for this episode of Canfield and Company. Have a great Canfield and Company day.